such an unreliable narrator at the centre of a film like this? The audience just doesn't know how much they can trust what Patrick is telling them. They know he's got secrets, he's lying a bit, so how does that affect the way that you approach the role?
That's an interesting take. Yeah, I kind of enjoyed the ambiguity of, I mean, my kind of way in with him was that he's a drug addict, and a functioning drug addict. So what tends to come with that is a barrage of lies, and like an upkeep of this persona that you're required to upkeep, but also then what's behind that, and the sort of the broken mess that I considered someone to be, all the while trying to compute life on an academic scale. I think was as much as a burden to him than anything else.
Just checking that we don't have Colin before I continue.
Nah, they're going mental in the tech department.
Definitely.
We can text him, or we can get him to reply via text.
He's Irish, and it'll be very hard to pin down.
Andrew, how does that unreliable narrator affect the way that you direct and construct the film?
I don't know really. I guess it's just that you want someone to be complex enough as a character that it's that the audience doesn't really know where they stand with that character. And so I think a lot of the scenes we knew that he was performing, Sumner was, to different people within each different scene. So he's acting a certain way in front of Brownlee. He's, you know, when the door closes in his cabin, he gets to be himself. So we get to see, even within like the first 10 minutes, you know, who he is to other people, and then who he is when he's by himself. And even his accent changes. Like, we talked a lot about like that sometimes when he's by himself, the kind of more like working class roots kind of come out of his voice, whereas the rest of the time he's a different type of thing. He's trying to be the surgeon. And so we talked about those kind of things. And I think we just always try and work out what the character is wanting to portray in each and every scene that he's in, and what he's trying to get other people to believe that he is about in those scenes.
I mean, I called it a film just now because it is so cinematic. It is so beautiful, and again, obviously seeing it on the big screen just is a cut above. So tell us how you approach the look and the feel of the series through the design.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, we always thought of it as a 5-hour film, which is a long film, obviously. And, you know, there was a world when we could have done this, I guess, more traditionally in terms of how TV is normally made. And I have trouble thinking about things in terms of TV sometimes. So to me, it is just this 5-hour story. I mean, I think the main thing was we just wanted, the book is so grounded in the reality of the world of the Arctic that we just wanted that to come across on the screen as much as we could. And, you know, Kate, the producer, will tell you that, you know, we pretty much went for the hardest way in each and every stage, because we didn't want to do it in a car park on green screen. We didn't want to shoot it in any kind of traditional way, so we wanted to go and, you know, be up where we were shooting and stuff. So, you know, that causes difficulties.
Yeah, what are the practicalities of filming like that?
Really easy. It's really easy.
Such a liar.
Asking, were they real whales?
Yeah, well, you are.
Yeah, they're real whales that we killed. Just so no one says, like, they obviously weren't real whales. So, you know, it was very, very complicated. Like, you know, we're all on boats, and, you know, oh look, Colin's here now. You know.
Hi, mate. I was rowing.
There he is.
There he is.
Hey.
Yeah, I was sorry. Hey, Jack.
How are you, bud?
Alright, hey, Andrew. Is Tom there?
Hi.
Hey, old chick, I love it. Sorry, Andrew.
I have no idea what I was saying.
We're talking about
Is that
killing
so?
whales. I hope I haven't missed the seal part.
You haven't. We've saved that for you, don't worry. Wales.
The whales weren't real, no.
Brilliant.
You know, Colin was really rowing in a boat in the sea. And I think that was the second day of our shoot, and it was like, fucking hell. I mean, we just got up there, it was like a 2-day sail or whatever the hell it was to get to the top of there. And yeah, it was an intense couple of days of shoot when you're trying to shoot in water with ice hitting you and the wind blowing and Colin refusing to wear gloves because Jax would never wear gloves and his hands are bleeding as he's rowing. So thank you for that, Colin. So yeah, it was a very, but I think, you know, they'll tell you that it was an amazing experience to be up there and to like feel all of that and be actually in that kind of real environment. And I think it helped all of us, tell the story the right way, all the way we wanted.
And I mean, Colin, you look so different from the man that we've just spent 2 hours watching. How did you achieve that transformation?
Just the filter light I'm using. Right now, my sister was kind enough to drop down. I'm looking at this kind of orb to make me look less Draxian. It was fairly clear on reading the book. He was a fairly explicitly described character physically. I mean, there was a certain kind of power to his body, the way he filled space, the way he moved through space, a certain brute strength that he had, and the confidence of a man that carries himself with a keen awareness of that brute strength. So while I never really arrived at such brute, I mean, I did get fairly strong. Look, I just put on weight. I just lived to weight and 8. That's all. Anyone could do it, really, and I wouldn't advise it. And that was it. I wanted to look. It was the first time. I think I was saying this to Jack at some stage when we were talking on the boat one evening. It was one of 2 times in my life where you couldn't take off the costume. You know, I couldn't really step from the car.
It would be a Zoom call without a cat.
Yeah, you did. No, where's my seal club? The rock gift from Andrew, yeah.
Yeah, he did eat an enormous amount of food.
I couldn't get out of the costume. It was always with me. That's one of the. It was one of the kind of. It was a great benefit to me because it just meant 365, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, however many weeks we shot. I was constantly inhabiting this physical space that was very different for me, just unusual, and it helped greatly, I think. Yeah, that's it.
So, what was the most impressive thing about filming in this kind of Arctic wasteland?
Look, it was life changing, to be honest. Obviously, you come back from it and your life looks exactly the same, but I felt that it was a really profound. I've been lucky enough through the years to. Alexander was a very extreme experience, not just in how brutally it was ravaged by the critics and.
I wasn't a critic then. That
but it was
me.
no. Yeah, but it was one of those experiences. I was in North Africa with a bunch of people, and it was one of those experiences. Sometimes you're lucky enough to have in film where you go through the fire enough with people that you know that if you see them in 10 or 30 years, honest to God, I know it sounds very kind of almost twee or overly romanticized, but if you see them in 20 years across the room, you'll have a look, and within that look, you'll share the acknowledgement, the mutual acknowledgement that you went through experience that was really significant, really profound, and really changed you in ways that may reveal themselves through the years. And honest to God, without hesitation, I would say this was one of those very few and rare experiences. Just the space, just the vastness of it, the beauty of it, and silence that was up there. I mean, the boats, the boats that were on, the 2 boats that had engines, they hummed, they heard a little bit, but there was just this emptiness and this kind of loneliness to the place that was very beautiful and very honest. It wasn't kind of loneliness that we can experience in the cities as people when we're around people and we feel lonely. It was the loneliness of kind of, you hear people talk about man's insignificance in the face of our woman's, the person's, humans. When I say man, it's humankind, of course, insignificance in the face of nature and the brutality of nature and the beauty of nature, the vastness of the scope of it. It was very much that every single day. It was so beautiful and felt like such an honor to be up there to parts of the world that very few people had seen. So all that to say, it was incredible. I kept a video diary that I sent home to the kids, which was something I hadn't planned to do, but I needed to do something. I needed to articulate how beautiful and how emboldened I was by the experience of being up there. And just as far as the work went, as Andrew was saying, it did something, obviously it did something psychologically, I think, to each and every one of us and put us in a particular psychological place, but also physiologically, I found my body was responding to the temperatures, in a way that was very particular. It was kind of like your body was constantly in survival mode. I never slept better in my life because the work, while not, again, it wasn't labor per se, but it was about as hard as film work can be, just by virtue of being in those elements and being, shooting from, we'd wake up in the morning, it would be dark outside, and we would shoot till past last light, till Andrew would shoot. He was so, is such a fan of things being as real as they can and capturing things in the raw, that he would shoot way past, and just be lighting on paraffin. And so it was incredible for us all, I think, as actors, and Jack can talk more about it, of course, but as actors and as men and women, as the cast. And this wasn't just the cast, now, this is not just talking to us, it was all the crew members and everything. Everyone had such a profound time. And we were telling a very ugly story in a very beautiful place. And there was something to that kind of contrast or contradiction that was quite powerful.
Jack, do you want to talk about some of the challenges that you faced and your experience?
Yeah, I mean, Colin puts it very well. Reminded there that we've never slept any better in our lives, and I think we're in a truly enchanting environment. And one of the starkest memories for me wasn't during shooting, it was as we were making headway further north and really letting rip, and we all knew that we were going to this place where, I mean, apparently nobody's ever shot a drama before, and it just felt like there was a different relationship between the horizon and the sea, and what was the journey that the sun makes over you in the daytime. It was really apparent that we were in previously to ourselves unenchanted territory, and that just kind of contributed to the whole sort of the magic of the whole experience. And then when you can harness that and feel like you can use that and bring that into your work, then you've got this sense of conviction, and you don't have to use your imagination so much. And the boat that we were using, I mean, there were times where we were working on board this ship, and utter silence, broken only by the creaking of the wood and the type of cacophony that you would hear there and then. And you can't ask for much more than that. I mean, instead of being on a soundstage somewhere with a gimbal, and that's making sort of different type of noises. You've got this thing that completely elopes you, and I think we were all benefited by it greatly.
Tom, we saw you in a couple of scenes there, but your kind of huge moments come one scene. You're counting. We see you again. That wasn't your sort of, crowning moment.
It comes after me.
I mean, it kind of struck me that Baxter is quite Dickensian in a way. How did you find your way to portraying this kind of evil capitalist?
Well, I just thought of how I knew the trawler owners who were the descendants, in a sense, of the whaling boat owners, I knew they were quite ruthless. I thought of that, and it's very well written. So I learned the lines, and he told me he wanted me to have a little wave in my hair. He does speak very well. It's very wonderful lines, and he does. He has lots more lines at the end. You won't see me, but you'll hear me a lot.
But it must have been a lot of fun to play somebody who was just that much more sort of dark and...
Yeah, well, and also the lads, you know, I had to, well, there was lovely Stephen at first, and then that scene which you've seen, and he said, because I'm so old, he said, he's a Scouser, so he said, I feel like I've been in a match with Kenny Dalglish. And they were all very welcoming, and Jack, and Colin kept hugging me. You know, and that's what Irish people do, I don't know.
I thought you were somebody else.
They were good to be with them. Yeah, it's a job.
We just mentioned the lovely Stephen Graham there. I mean, how was it to have Stephen Graham at the helm of the captain of the ship?
He was a good captain. I mean, I think for me the cast for this was so important, and we, you know, me and the casting director and everyone talked long and hard about getting the right people, and I'm so happy with who ended up being on that ship. Tom not on the ship, but you know, they're all such.
They were all very well cast, except me.
You're very well cast. I always knew you had badness in you. It's very clear. So Steve was fantastic, and I think, you know, he feels like he should be the captain of a ship. And I think we talked a lot about not wanting the obvious people to play these roles. You know what I mean? Like Stephen Graham isn't usually the captain of a ship, in truth. And you know, Tom is not normally the, you know, evil capitalist. And you know, and so it was interesting to get people that you wouldn't necessarily think would have been in those, and I always find that really interesting. And Peter Mullen as well, who obviously you don't see now, he appears in one of the episodes later on. And you know, I was amazed that we got the cast we got. I couldn't be happier.
And Colin, you know, you're playing an incredibly dark character as Drax. Did you kind of have to find redeeming characteristics when you're playing somebody, or I mean, does Drax have any?
I haven't seen the 6th episode yet, but from the 5-week shot, absolutely not. I mean, no. No. I think what you have to do is just have a look and try and understand, perhaps objectively, why things maybe are the way they are, and how somebody, not that there's ever a perfectly suitable explanation, which is obviously miles away from the thoughts of justification, but to try and understand why he is how he is and where he came from and all that stuff. But no, I don't think there was any kind of, I mean, redeeming qualities in the fact that, you know, no. I was going to say the redeeming quality that he's single-minded, and that he has his own world to do, and that he lives without apology, but no, they're not redeeming qualities. Are they admirable? Not really in the vessel that is Drax either, but look, as you know, Tom said about what incredible script that Andrew wrote. You know, it started with obviously Ian's novel, and then Andrew just, I read the script for the novel, and it was an extraordinary character. I'd never been offered a role like it. I'm not sure that I had ever read a role like it, that it was where what felt like sheer carnal brutality was fleshed out so kind of beautifully in how, that's the thing, objectively there was kind of a beauty to how ugly and how broken. From the inside he doesn't feel broken, but from the outside, in my world where I get to choose nice things and have nice thoughts and evolve as a human being or not, as the case may be. But Drax is very much an animal of his environment. I just couldn't attest to what his nature is, but I think his environment has been one, that's scored him so severely. Yeah, I was just worried, I suppose, that it was black and white, but no, Andrew wrote an amazing art and it was very, very fun.
It was just black.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
I think what I liked about Colin playing Drax was that personally I feel like you want to be drawn to Drax, even though you may be repelled by his actions. And just as I think Sumner is drawn to Drax, it's almost like Drax seems like he has the answer, possibly, to existence in a really brutal world full of pain and suffering, and he has the answer. Of course, he doesn't have the answer. But there is something attractive about that, I think, and Sumner is drawn to him, and Cavendish is drawn to him, and everybody sometimes, you're attracted to the people that are quite repellent sometimes, and who knows why, but I do think that's something truthful about all of us. So I like that, and I think Colin does that, because he is also, even though he's very brutal in the world, he's also quite attractive in the world. And so you are sort of pulled towards him, and then repelled at the same time.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Andrew Hay.
Brutal repellent.
Enjoyed your career up till now.
Jack, there are, looking at Sumner's character, there are so many different ways to portray what he's going through, which is presumably PTSD. So what did you want to include in this portrayal, and how much, where did your research take you?
I think importantly was to think about the period in time and how that would be totally irrelevant to anything that I sort of could assume it to be. It's a Victorian era, which is enthralling in its own right. And then, so for me, to simplify it at first, I just tried to understand and get with what it is to have the tools and the ability and the intelligence and everything that you could apply to prospering and breaking down the kind of social constructs which prevent somebody of Sumner's social class getting on. So it was the imposter syndrome, and that for me was particularly interesting, to kind of always feel like you're trying to make up for something and trying to compensate. For me, it just felt like he was constantly trying to feel ahead and doing whatever he could to get there, and unable to settle. And then you put him in this environment, which he's obviously put himself there in order to try and remedy and understand that about himself. And he meets his character in Drax that is unapologetically evil. And I think that was a great source of curiosity for Sumner and what I wanted to kind of bring to that. So yeah, multi-layered, and I'll echo what Colin said. That Andrew's written a fantastically layered character, which means there's constant enjoyment in unraveling that and putting him in these different circumstances and very extreme circumstances all the time, more or less. For me, I felt like there was a part in the story where he actually found his feet and there was an actualization for it. Only to find that he's then in the crosshairs of this very troubling man. Just by trying to do the right thing, yeah, it's a fantastically detailed journey. So yeah.
And Andrew, you just kind of talked about the themes of existentialism. So how did you kind of want to, these that was in the novel presumably, but how did you want to bring that out in a drama without sort of going into something otherworldly?
Well, I guess it's just, if we're following Sumner's journey, what I always liked about it was that he's trying to find the way to live and the answer essentially to his problems in a, as we've said before, in a very brutal world that is very challenging. It's like, how do you decide to live? How do you choose to live? And I think what Sumner is trying to do is use his intellect. He is reading Homer, he is like writing his journal, he's trying to understand the world in an intellectual way, and then he is sort of faced with someone who's living out of kind of pure instinct. And it's almost like it offers another way to deal with the suffering in an existential sense, I suppose. And I think there's this notion which I really liked about the book is this idea that if you try hard enough and you can find redemption and life can be great again. And of course, that's not reality for most people. So, and I like that within the story, there was always something that's chasing him. His background is chasing him. How he's born is chasing him. Where he grew up is chasing him. The fact he was abandoned as a kid is always behind him. And then he gets over one problem, the next one comes about, and it's this constant having to deal with the suffering in his life that's so complex.
You must have to build up a lot of trust with your actors to take them on a journey like this, right? So how do you even go about sort of proposing that this is what you're going to be doing and how that will enhance their performances?
I don't know, you might have to ask them. I think, we didn't rehearse, I don't normally rehearse, I never really have done. Maybe read through things a few times to a few people and just talk with them and communicate as you would as a normal human being, and try and talk about things in the script that make sense to talk about, and then leave other things just hidden from both of you and from all of you, and let it come out in the moment. And I don't know, I think how actors work and how directors work is such a strange thing that's very, very hard to intellectualize. You just do it in the moment. You can do it with a look, you can do it with a pat on the shoulder, you can do it with an action that you give an actor, and it's about the questions that they ask and the questions they don't ask, and you just find your way. I mean, it's like you're a therapist and they're your therapist as well, and I do feel like it's something you all kind of just battle through together and find the right way to do a scene. And I mean, they might tell you otherwise, but I don't think I'm too oppressive in how I want a scene to be played. I leave it up to these people can act, I can't. So it's just through gentle conversation, I guess, more than anything else. Is that right, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, Tom, you worked with Andrew on
7
years. So, how did that experience, what did that experience make you want to join him on this project?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it helped, didn't it? And I said, well, I'm not really like this, and he said, oh, I mean, I think the best I've ever been in a film was with Andrew, I think. So I thought, why not go with it again?
It was as easy as that, basically. Tom, would you like to do this? Okay.
Colin, you mentioned the seals. I mean, I kind of shudder to think where, if you had to go down any sort of rabbit holes in terms of researching that, how do you learn how seal clubbing would have been done at that time?
There's plenty of literature, and people were kind enough to amass some of it, and we also had somebody who was knowledgeable about that period of history and about seafaring and about the whaling industry and seal clubbing, etc. Yeah, it was brutal. It was brutal. I mean, obviously there was nothing there, and CGI was added in later, and then But just that time, I mean, it was such a dark time, it was such a violent time. There was so much sickness, there was so much death, and that was represented everywhere, you know, on the streets of Hull before we leave, and then obviously this ship and all the souls on it become these kind of vessels of madness and violence. But for Drax, it was just another day at the office. You know, he was somebody who obviously has very little station in his life on land, and then when he goes to sea, he has a certain amount of status, and he's not, you know, because it's easy for me to idealize him in the way that he's just an animal and he's just this, but he does have human traits. You know, he does. I don't think he understands what love is or anything like that. I don't think he has any love in him. I don't think he has any desire for love or knowledge about love or reference for the experience of love or friendship or any of those higher virtues. But he has, obviously very animalistic, he has desire and he has ego. And so, yeah, the seals were just another means by which he could explore his animalism. You know, he wouldn't give it much thought, but there's no doubt that he got a good feeling from being as capable as he was in that field of ruin, you know. But yeah, it was just, the whole thing was a very, very dark and very cruel and very brutal time, and epitomized by the industry that is represented in this piece. You know? And what Andrew said about working with him was spot on, by the way. He's gorgeous. He's just, you know, he's just honestly the most, and you can tell by listening to him, he's just a straight shooter, and he's honest, and he's generous. He's obviously incredibly bright. He's just really generous and has an easy way with him, and he doesn't feel the need to. I mean, when I saw the North Water, I was so in awe of various frames that he chose and editorial choices that he made, and especially in relation sometimes to Sumner's flashbacks and how we entered Sumner's memory and how we came back to the present. I was so blown away by it, and I had no idea. Some of that stuff was done after we shot, but a lot of it was done on the day where he was choosing to put the camera and things. I don't know what it is with Andrew, but I really wasn't aware of any of it. He's got such a kind of a very real and quiet grace to him, and he's an animal. Look, it was his choice, but we all ended up in the fucking arsehole nowhere. on the top of the planet, you know, in a place where the day when they said after 5 weeks, Sophie, and they said, we're heading back to open water, i.e. we're heading south, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the relief I had that nobody died. On my life. And so that was Andrew Haig's choice. So I'm not saying he's genteel, he's an animal. He's just deeply kind and deeply straight, and he talked to us all with respect, and he wouldn't direct you too much, he'd let you do your thing, and then he'd come over with something incredibly precise and succinct and make a suggestion. So you know, I speak for us all and say it was an amazing time working with him. Yeah.
I mean, Jack, it does just sound like an experience of a lifetime. So when you're kind of spoiled like that as an actor, how do you kind of take those experiences forward and then go and act on a soundstage or on a small set? You know, how do you not always chase that high of acting in that sort of scenario?
Just refuse to do it. Unless we're there. Unless it's with Andrew. I don't know. I think, yeah, we all knew it. We were saying it at the time. It's a once in a lifetime experience. None of us, I think, in our wildest dreams ever expected to have been fortunate enough to have been blessed with that type of opportunity. So I think, you know, and Andrew at the wheel, we just kind of thought, right, well, the least we can do is dig deep, and then some, and then some. Yeah, again, I'd like to echo all of that that's been said. I think